Hey guys, welcome to Home Sweet Homeschool. If you're new here, my name is Ashley and I'm a homeschooling mom to one. And in today's video, we're going to do a little flip through, look inside Campfire Curriculums unit with the skills of a Life Navigator passport to adulthood. So if you watched my previous video, I was sharing what we were using in August, and this is the unit that we started with. And a lot of you wanted to see what it looked like on the inside. So I'm definitely going to share that in just a minute, but let me just talk about Campfire for just a little bit. If you've never checked out Campfire Curriculums and you love unit studies or you're just looking for another way to learn in your home, definitely go to their website. I'll have it linked down below. They have a planner, they have a reading program, and then they have a ton of units to choose from. And they also come out with holiday units, so definitely give them a look at if you haven't. I love Campfire. We've been using them for years, and so I love to share and talk about things that we love here on this channel. So this unit, with the skills of a Life Navigator passport to adulthood, is a $40 digital unit, in case you have never checked them out before. So when you purchase it, you're going to get a digital download, and this unit comes with 3 guidebooks. So I did take some notes. It comes with 3 guidebooks: an early learner, a growing, and an advanced. And so if you've never used it before, there are directions that you can download and it will explain a little more about it. Also on their website, it will explain their approach, how they come up with their units, how they're created, how they can be used. You can find all of that there. And I've done a couple of videos about it in the past. If you want to see, anything about Campfire, I have a ton here on my channel. So you will get 3 guidebooks. I urge you to open all the downloads and look through all of it. It will take some time because these units are a beast. I mean, they are packed full with so much learning and so much information. They're amazing. You will be blown away. If you've never done one of their unit studies, you will be blown away. So it's 12 lessons, and it can take anywhere from 4 to 6 weeks, but it really is very flexible. That's the great thing about Campfire. It's very flexible. You can use it however you want to. As far as like this unit, we're doing a lesson a day, but that's because we use it as our core. I only have 1 child, but so many families use it in so many different ways. You can set a timer and do it for a set amount of time. You could do it a couple of days a week. You could take 1 unit and spread it out as long as you want to. We're using their geography series right now, and we kind of just do it about 5 to 10 minutes a day. We just read from the unit. So you can really use it however you want to. It's super flexible. And when we get into the unit, I'll show you like the skip if you want pages and things like that, the activities, all those good things. So one thing you're going to notice if you've never done these before is that there are no worksheets. It's definitely a different type of learning and, taking that information you learned and talking about it and showing it in different ways. You're not going to find worksheets. You also do not have a separate teacher's guide because you're going to use the book. Like when I show you the printable things, you're going to use one of those downloads to read out of. What you are going to notice is that the black font in the units are for everybody, and then the sidebars where the colored font is, that's going to be for your different ages, and it'll explain all of that in the directions if you download those. So this unit here explores what it means to grow up well across the world. So you're talking about a variety of different places, and we'll look at the table of contents in a minute, and we'll go through, what you're covering. We are at the time I'm filming this video, we're on lesson 7, and it has been amazing. The information has been great. The activities have been great. The core connections have been great. We have loved it. Inside this unit, it gives a deeper why behind maturity, etiquette, emotional intelligence, and real responsibility. The core connections, you're going to have a science and a language arts, and so it's very biology focused. We've talked a lot about emotional type intelligence, and it's just been great. And then you'll see that when I show you the core connections, you'll see the type of focus that it is. It talks about hormones. It talks about our control center. So we've learned like the amygdala and the prefrontal cortex and all those things. So we have learned a ton, and we're just 7 lessons in. So I will show you all of that. And I also want to mention, when you purchase a unit, you're going to be able to visit the links page for that unit. And on the links page, you're going to find the videos you're going to need for the lessons and for the core connections. And they have been watched by the people from Campfire, so you know that they're safe to show, and they do give a warning if need be. You're going to find supply list on the links page. You're going to find book list and any other resources that you may need. So, but before I do that, I did have somebody say, how do you handle printing all of that? That seems like a lot of printing. I don't have a printer. That would cost a lot. And let me just tell you this, I've done it a bunch of different ways. I am a part of the HP Instant Ink program. You really just pay by the page number. They have different monthly plans. It's an option. It's always linked in my description box. That's what I've always done as far as printing goes. Sometimes when I print them, I will use my ProClick, which is in my Amazon store if you want to check out that. I use the ProClick and the binding machine. That's the binding machine. And the little binders, you can buy those separately. And so sometimes I make books like that, but I've learned that with Campfire, I just don't have the appropriate size rings. Like Campfire is a beast. And so a lot of times I will put Campfire in a flex binder, which they're wonderful, or a 3-ring binder. But let me tell you what I've done the past couple of units that we've used from them. What I like to do is just download it to my MacBook that I have. If you have a computer, an iPad, something like that, definitely you need Adobe or some way to open it. Adobe just works better. I download it onto my computer and then I just screen share it to our smart TV in the living room. So I'm not having to print anything. I can read it straight from my computer. My son can see it up on the TV screen if he needs to see it. Now, you could go and print every one of your children a book. If you want them to have one, you want them to have it in front of them, they can take notes in it, whatever it may be. You can do that. But if you're like, I'm just not going to be able to print it, I can't purchase it, I don't want that to stop you, because if you have a way to download it and share it to a smart TV or just look at it on your computer, you can do that. That's what we're doing with this. Like when I hold this up, like this is my son's notebook. There's no pages in it. This is just notebook paper. So that's all he does. He takes notes. And you're going to see as I flip through the unit, there are places to stop and discuss. There's places for them to repeat things back. There's places for them to journal or to write things down. And that's why he just has a notebook with blank paper. So you can definitely do it from screen sharing it. You do not have to print it, okay? One of the things I did this time is I like to download. I always just do the advanced. My son's a high schooler. He's in 11th grade. So I just do the advanced guidebook. I like to sit down and go through each lesson. I read through it. I write down anything that sticks out to me that I want to make sure that I don't forget. There's activities in there, and we just don't have the time to do all the activities, and I know that my son won't like all the activities. So I just sit down, I go through each lesson, I make a note of what I want us to do and make sure that we cover, and then I go through the core connections for that, and I write down if there's anything I want to print off for my son. So my son doesn't like to draw, and he would be more frustrated drawing. So I'd try to take the frustration away by printing some things for him. And I like to use this thing I got off of Amazon. I think it has 12 pockets. And so what I do, like, of course this one's missing because it's from lesson 1. But if there was something I wanted to print off for him that I wanted him to put in his notebook, like this page here came out of there, this came out of the core connections, anything that I'm going to get him to glue into his notebook because I know he's not going to want to draw it, I just put it in here by lesson number. There's also a little game kind of thing in there. I have that clipped in there. And as you can see for our other lessons, I have the pieces that he needs. And so this is real helpful if you want to save extra pieces or you do want to print it out and separate it by lesson. I love this thing. I use this thing all the time. Another thing that we use, because I know you're sitting there thinking, well, if there's no worksheets, where are they putting their thoughts? Well, what are they doing? We love to use, like I said, plain notebook paper works. And then in the past, we have used these notebooks from School Nest. These are always linked in my Amazon shop. We have used these for years. We love them. I love their notebooks, their planners, everything. So this was his history one, and he would just, whatever we were talking about, he would just take notes. You can put pictures. these are excellent. Let me show you what the pages look like. So in case and you can see on, you can look on the School Nest website if you want to. So this page has place to draw and has some grid. And then this one is blank at the top with just lines. And I think she has revamped the covers. You can get grade level notebooks. I mean, there's so many options, but we've been using this one for years. We love it. This is the history one. This is the science one. You can get, they don't come with this sticker. My son put that sticker on it. But you can get them in a variety of colors. You don't have to get green if you don't like green. But yeah, here's the science one. And this is just from when we've done past units. This was from the weather, the storm chaser unit. And so we add pictures. He draws some things. We love them. And this one's set up a little bit different. This one has the dot grid, if you can see that. And then it has the blank with the lines. And so this is a good option for your kids to record what they're learning in. You can use those, or you can just use plain notebook paper. It doesn't matter. All right, so that was my introduction. I'm sorry it took so long, but I did want to provide a little bit of background on it. So now let's get into that flip through. All right, let's do a little look inside with the skills of a Life Navigator, Passport to Adulthood. So I'm not going to show you the whole unit. You can see a lot of pages on their website. Then I'm just going to show you a few of the lessons, some of the activities, and the core connections. So first we're going to look at the table of contents just so you can see what's included. So there is a prologue that you'll want to read before you start. So we just did it the day before we started the unit. Then you have 12 lessons that are going to hit things like what is adulthood anyway, manners make the world. You have 2 lessons that focus on Japan, executive function and the art of boredom, when in France, speak up, calm down, work hard, rest well, a time for everything, hygiene in public and digital spaces, and then there's a bonus lesson called immature marriages. So it's got something for the adults as well. This is also in the front of it, and I'm not going to read all of this to you, but it just says that they wanted to give you a quick window into what makes this Passport to Adulthood unit both exciting and challenging to write. It talks about how the topic of maturity is important, but it's not very simple to teach. Because when you do a unit like this, you're working with kids of all ages, all different life experiences, and family expectations. So some kids may be already shouldering big responsibilities, and others are still learning what it means to consider someone else's perspective. So this just talks about some kids might find some of this babyish, and some still need this guidance. So their goal with this unit isn't to lecture kids about how to behave. It's to model maturity through story and humor, reflection and connection, so that every student sees themselves somewhere in the learning and feels invited to grow. So I thought that was interesting to point out. And then on the back of it, it says the advanced guidebook includes some sensitive sidebar content. Like I mentioned earlier in the video, the black font in these units are for everybody, or is for everybody. And then the sidebar colored font is for the different ages. So if you do print the advanced guidebook, which is what I do, there is some sidebar content, and it's just giving you a warning that some can be sensitive, and it's intended for older students only. It does talk about and reference abusive traditions of pagan religions and other related topics. It doesn't go into great detail, it says. It says, even so, if your child reads along with you and you prefer to avoid exposing them to this material, you could just use the growing guidebook instead. This does say this unit is ideally suited for ages 11 plus. Some lessons can be skipped at earlier ages and revisited later. And then the Early Learner Guidebook is a companion offering for your younger ages. And it's just a small space for your younger learners. And then you can always revisit this unit when those kids are older. So I wanted to share that before we went on. So I am going to show you lesson 1. So lesson 1 is, what is an adult anyway? And so you start off with just some fun questions like, what's the most immature thing adults do? And there are so many things. When do you pretend to be more mature than you feel? Just some questions to get your kids talking. And the whole prologue, you're introduced to a girl named Mira, and you're going through, what she's going through. You're reading about her, and she wants to know, the whole time she's trying to figure out, like, would she just become mature one day? Like, does that day, is it a certain day? Is there a certain thing that has to happen to make you an adult? And so they're talking about all of that, and that's what you're going throughout this. So then you have a cool teacher moment, and if you're new to Campfire Curriculums, they're just those times to stand out and do fun things to make you the cool teacher. And so this right here, it talks about how different countries have ceremonies and challenges to prove when someone's officially an adult. And so it has some different things here, like involves cutting hair, includes ants, includes bulls. And so you have to kind of make a guess as to which country would have this type of celebration. So that's a lot of fun. And then you learn the answers throughout the unit. And so now Mira, the girl in the story, she's reading through these different customs and things and learning about different places, like in South Korea. She reads about Ethiopia. They do talk about what is a rite of passage, and there's some more information on Ethiopia. You learn about Indonesia, how they determine if somebody's an adult, Papua New Guinea. And then you have another cool teacher moment, and this is a lot of fun. So you pause, you grab a jar, and you toss in slips of paper with mini challenges. And so some things would be like run around the house 5 times in under 60 seconds, jump rope 200 times without tripping. It gives some different things. And so each person picks one, they can't back out of it. And you can see if when you pass that, do you become an adult? You can come up with your own adulting test. And you talk about, do these rituals actually have anything to do with maturity? Why or why not? Then you're going to talk about the threshold. And then, so what is an adult? One thing I do want to point out, there's a couple of things. There are dark words. Of course, those are the words you want to reiterate with your child, talk about what they mean. And then there are places to stop and talk. Like this says, older students, you would ask them, like, what do you think? Make an argument for which one best defines true adulthood. And this talks about how maturity is shown in some cultures and what rites of passage are. And then this is 3 common stages of a rite of passage. And this just keeps going through different cultures and how they determine when you're an adult. And then it does have right here, share your thoughts. Is 15 too young for this? Should it happen sooner? And then there is a note here, like for anyone who wants to see a couple of these traditions, you can go to the links page. So I just have it pulled up on my computer and we share it to the screen. Then here you're going to read a little bit more. This is What About America? And then for your older kids, you would ask, is the U.S. missing something by not having a formal tradition? If you could design a meaningful American rite of passage for teens, what would it look like? And you just keep reading through, and there are prompts for you to stop and have discussions with your kids. That's what I love about Campfire. And then you have one here, what behaviors make someone seem emotionally or socially immature, even if they're legally grown up? And you have another note about the United States. And for this sake, I printed these all single-sided, so you could print it any way you wanted to. Then you have a little thing for older students here about rites of passage. And then there's some journal about it. So if you have younger kids, if they have a notebook, they could journal about this topic here, like what's one thing you're proud of doing without being told. You have that. And then for your older students, there's something for them to journal about. So you could either talk about it or you could journal about it, whichever one you wanted to do. It's so flexible. You could do whatever you wanted to with it, really. Now, as you can see, this is a pretty lengthy lesson. It also has a career spotlight where you're going to learn all about an anthropologist. And you might be thinking that is a whole lot to digest in one sitting. And if it is, you can break it up any way you want to. You can stretch these lessons out for as many days as you want to. You can take breaks. You can do whatever you need to do to make it work for you. So this is the career spotlight. Now, Campfire also has things called skip if you want pages, and that's exactly what it means. You can skip them if you want to and not do them at all. You could do it as a completely separate lesson on a different day. You could give it to your older kids for independent reading, whatever you want to do. So if you do want to skip them, you would just go ahead and go to the Faith Talk and Think Tank, or you can do these. We tend to do the skip if you want pages. We like them. So this skip if you want is about modern culture, and it does say it's for ages 15 plus. So this just talks about what happened to growing up and the Peter Pan syndrome, and this was a great discussion with my son. So that's the skip if you want pages. And then all of their lessons end with a faith talk and think tank. So you just end your day by coming together and focusing on the Lord. And you've got your Bible verses. It relates back to what you've been learning. They're wonderful. And then the think tanks are excellent for critical thinking, to talk about ethics, and to have family discussions. So this this faith talk was continued on to 2 pages. And we always do those at the very end. We do both of those at the very end. Now, another thing that Campfire has at the end of lessons are activity options. You do not have to do all the activities. You can, if you're an activity-loving family, then you can certainly do it. You could pick 1 or 2, you could pick 1, you could do none. That's how flexible it is. So activity option 1 is the kids come up with their own rite of passage and they write about it. Activity option 2 would be to interview an adult and ask them questions like, when do you feel like you became an adult? Where is there a moment that changed how others treated you? And you can turn it into a short write-up or storytelling journal entry. So some of the lessons have more than 2 activities. Some just have 1. Some, it just depends. All right, let's look at, this one had 1 more and I totally missed it. So activity option 3 is poetry for your creative kids, and activity option 4 is literature and film. So you could do certain activities for certain kids. You could do the same activity for all of them, whatever. And then at the end, it does tell you, if you use this as your main curriculum, now's the time to open up your core connections. And we'll look at core connections in just a minute. I do want to show you another lesson. I have 2 more lessons. So this is lessons 5 and 6. It's all about executive function and the art of boredom. It was wonderful too. And it does note that this is a longer lesson, so they did split it into 2 and they tell you where to stop. So you're learning all about executive function, and if you live with someone with ADHD, then this is super helpful to read through. Let me make sure I did the right thing here, yeah. So then you have another cool teacher moment with some exercises to do. That was a lot of fun. This talks about how does it grow. That this part of your brain with executive functioning can grow, and here's how. And it talks about overstimulation, which a lot of us are overstimulated. Then you go back to Mira, who's your main girl in this whole story, and it's talking about screen time and phones. And then you get to learn about how different places are handling different things. So you've got Amsterdam in the Netherlands. Then you talk about Denmark and how these kids spend time outside. And then you also talk about Norway, about how people take breaks outdoors and you're just listening to the wind and the trees. And then you get to a point where Mira calculates how many hours a year she has spent on her phone. And she's very shocked that she gives away 136 days every year to a screen and is wasted on her phone. And you finish with her story, and then you get to time check yourself. And if that's not eye-opening, I don't know what is. Now, it does mention that, technology is not a bad thing. It's how we manage it. And they make sure to say things like that. So you do your time check challenge, and then it says, let's be real. Phones are tools. We should use them that way, and that will help our executive function if we do that. And so here's the good news. These are some things that you can do. And then there is a cool teacher moment where you watch a video if you want to. And then you've got your faith talk. And so it's multiple pages. And then you have your think tank. Is Gen Alpha really that different than the other? It's for your older students. And are they really that different from other generations? And your think tank is continued. Now you're at your activity options. So activity option 1 is to train your brain, and it's all about executive function. And this says, why is this amazing for growing your brain? And it goes through all of the things for activity 1. Activity option 2 is to embrace your inner Norway. So it tells you what you can do there. And then activity option 3 is just to be bored, to practice being bored. And then you would do your core connections. Now let me show you one more and then we'll get to the core connections. So this is lesson 11, so a little bit further into it. You start with a cool teacher moment, and it says set an alarm clock to go off every 5 minutes just for fun and see how it impacts each person as it goes off throughout the lesson. and how the buzz it does reset your brain. So this is called The River, and the river is everything you're responsible for. And you've got all these things going down the river, and it says if you try to catch every single thing flying by, you'll end up soaked, shivering, and exhausted, and still drop half of it. And so it says last time we talked about the importance of balancing work and rest, and today we're going to take it a step further. So you do have a cool teacher moment. It says a task list. Grab a piece of paper and write down what are the things you need to do today or this week, and then you're going to put them in a ranking order, like a real task list. You get back to Mira. This does talk about how task lists don't save you. And, you know, they'll just be drowning in this task list. And so there's two things, importance and urgency, how much it matters to you and how fast it needs to be done. And so you have a question, how did you organize your own task list from the beginning of the lesson? So if you sort your list by urgency or importance, it doesn't actually help you do more in your day. It just helps you rearrange what you're already planning to do. And so this goes through, it has like a task list pyramid. You put your most important task at the top so they're seen clearly, and you work your way down. And it says it all sounds great until you realize you're still doing everything, okay? So they help you juggle, they don't help you win. So then this talks about importance and urgency. And then what's the missing piece, the significance of it? It says forget the pyramid, flip it to a funnel. And it talks about where the idea originated. And it says, forget stacking tasks into neat little pyramids. Pyramids are heavy, ancient, and full of curses. Then it says, okay, just kidding. We're flipping the pyramid upside down and turning it to a funnel, and a funnel sorts for you. It filters out all the junk and noise, leaving only the good stuff behind. And so this tells you how to do it. It tells you how to eliminate. That's step 1. Step 2 is automate. And it gives you an example. Step 3 is to delegate. Step 4 is now it's yours. Does it need to happen now or later? Have no idea why this page is blank. You never know with my printer what you're going to get. This talks about significance, and there is a huge tip over here on the side. And it gives you some quick examples and some tips, and then your bonus tip is saying no without guilt, having boundaries. Then you get to your faith talk and your think tank, and then your activity options. So this just gives you a challenge. And then the second one is a jar that matters. I like this one. And then activity option 3 is to practice it. Now that you know how to filter your task list using a funnel, practice it with the task list you already have this week. So those are the lessons I wanted to show you. And before this gets too long, I want to show you a little bit of the core connections. I pulled out lesson 2's core connections. So this is the biology. There is a note to the parents. If you like a less is more approach to science, feel free to skip the longer pages for your high school student. If you want more depth and rigor, you do all of it. So this is on microbes. You're going to read through it. It's going to give you some extensions for elementary and middle school. There are times that you're going to ask them, okay, so what is microbiology? Or, okay, repeat this back, write them down. It's going to give you those prompts of what to do. This talks about why hand washing works, and then you've got your words for middle and high school extra. You have a try it out section, and then here elementary is going to stop. If you have younger kids, they can go, and then middle and high school are going to continue. So you'll keep going here. You're going to ask them to describe the microbiome in their own words, draw a picture of a human body, and put dots of different colors all over it. Create a key. Tells you everything they need to do. There are memory tips there. Then you're going to talk about the science of stink. It tells them to write things down. And then middle school ends there. If you have high school kids, you're going to keep going. You're going to dig deeper. You're going to talk about bacteria. You're going to talk about viruses. You're going to talk about fungi. You also talk about pH balance. And then it gets into language arts. So they do have grammar sections, and then they do have a writing part. So for the elementary, the grammar of the day is adjectives and prepositions. And then their language art skill is point of view. So you go over that with them. And you're going to talk about physical point of view and mental point of view. And then they have an assignment of what they need to do for elementary. Middle school, you're going to talk about commas, and you're going to review that. They're also going to talk about the 2 types of point of view in descriptive writing. And then they have an activity to do, okay? And then high school, they're going to review adjectives and adverbs. And then they're going to talk about physical point of view and mental, I can't even talk today, mental point of view. And then they have a little more. Arrange the details logically, use exact nouns and verbs. And so they have describe your scene, they have an assignment with a checklist, and they have a sample paragraph to look at. And then 5 is, I just pulled out 5 also. And so lesson 5 looks like this. Your biology talks about how your brain loves reward. And you go through dopamine and all that. What's the problem with these dopamine hits and compulsions? And then you're going to try out these games here, and then elementary stops. Middle school, high school continue. Why does it matter when you've trained your brain the wrong way? What is neuroadaptation? Middle school stops here, high school continues. And so you learn about the habit loop and what happens, trigger, behavior, reward, and then how it works. What can you do to retrain your reward system? And then you have a scenario with a bonus challenge. Language arts, you're going over for elementary proper nouns. And then they have an assignment to write about a person. Describe your person. Middle school, they're going over singular or plural pronouns. And then they will have a paragraph that describes the type of person using details and a clear impression. And then high school, we talked about passive voice. And then you're going to write about a generalized type of person that you've observed. And so it has the assignment here. So that is a look inside with the skills of a Life Navigator. I urge you to check out Campfire if you haven't yet. If you have any questions or comments about this unit or anything else about homeschool, leave them down in the comments below. And as always, thank you so much for watching.